Hello, hello. This is Christina Byrne. You're watching Black Tea News. Hello, hello. Welcome to Black Tea News. I'm your host, Christina Byrne. Today we're going to be talking about some hot rhetoric. To be fair, I don't think it's hot rhetoric from the words. I don't think it's like a go hunt the MAGAs kind of thing, but Tim Ryan said some comments, and when I first saw a headline, I'm like, that's can't be right. That's probably not true. And then as I was finishing up listening to Ben Shapiro, and he was going in the second hour or whatever, he's like, yeah, we're going to talk about Tim Ryan saying that killed MAGAs. I'm like, what? I'm like, so that's the thing. So I started looking it up. I'm like, that's not great. So we're going to talk about that today. Democrats are trying to do their victory lap because they were celebrating the other day about the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, which obviously is not going to reduce inflation, but it's going to transfer some money to friends of their friends who are into, green stuff. And that's what it's always about, just finding a way to deepen their pockets and take advantage of the American people. That's just what you do when you get in DC, especially when you have a D next to your name. Plenty of ours do it too, but something that you really do when you have a D next to your name. And all the levers of power. Also, there's a detransitioner. I've played one of her videos before, Chloe Cole, and she's been going around trying to stop some of these massive, crazy bills, especially like in California. California is like a lost place. They just need Jesus. I don't know what else to do with California. But she was attacked by Forbes. Forbes like took an article that another group had written. They put it in their paper and attacked Chloe Cole, and then they tried to play coy like, oh, this wasn't an attack piece. It was clearly an attack piece. And they're like, oh, she's a right-wing darling, and Marjorie Taylor Greene retweeted her stuff. And it's to frame her a certain way so people think that the right is hateful and what she's saying is hateful, when it's just her experience. And she's trying to say to other girls and other people like, hey, maybe we shouldn't chop off the healthy breasts of young women who are suffering from a delusion. Maybe we should help them and deal with whatever issues they have, whether it's depression, whether it's internalized misogyny, which a lot of these transitioners have. But they ended up removing it. But some of the stuff that they actually had in the article was pretty amazing. So we've just got to talk about it. And also, I just saw this. Stacey Abrams is denying. She won The View and like denied that she ever denied the election results. And I'm gonna have to piece the clips together and do I'm sure by the time I get to it, someone else will probably do it. But that's amazing. That's amazing because she's been denying the election that she lost for like 4 years at least, I guess. So 3-4 years. That was kind of her shtick. So we'll be talking about all those things today, but before we jump into it, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktnews.com, check out different content on my website. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. Costs to stream, costs to run my website, costs to get point A to B, to do location shots and other things like that. If you would like to help, I know buying inflation's got a lot of people down, but if you can, I very much appreciate whether it's $10, $20, if you can do more with 50 or something like that. Very much appreciate it. If you can't, I understand. Thank you for liking, for commenting, for sharing, for following me across social media, for tagging other people, for telling other people about Black Tea News. It's very much appreciated. Very much appreciated. Make sure that you guys follow me across all the platforms. All my handles are at Black Tea News, black like the color, tea like the drink, except for on Twitter. That one is at True Black Tea. Make sure you also check out different merch on the website, like the cool goat hoodies and the goat t-shirts. They're very comfortable. We also got stuff like the I'm Not the Victim You're Looking For t-shirt. My money, my business. And I'll just show one more. The pumpkin spice season. Got those. So you can go ahead and get that. I also have some t-shirts and long sleeve shirts since it's getting kind of nippy out there. Well, it's not quite nippy, but we'll get there very soon, sooner than we'd like. Also want to thank Bride Mission Pack. I'm in their studio today. If I say something today that triggers you, they don't care. I don't care. It doesn't work like that. They just like to uplift conservative voices. They do great work. Gonna be doing a lot of door knocking. Well, are doing a lot of door knocking, phone calls, all that kind of good stuff to get ready for election season. I know we're all very passionate about politics. Obviously, that's why you guys are watching. But people do need to go out there and talk to their neighbor, talk to their friends, actually do some work. Talk to some stuff on the ground. If you know people in organizations or pastors, like ask if you can, I don't know, flyer lit the parking lot or get up and talk or something. There's so many crazy things on the ballot that people need to talk about. We had Ryan Kelly on yesterday to talk about the ballot proposals in Michigan. Those cannot pass, especially the reproductive freedom for all. That cannot pass. And when you hear a bit about Chloe's story today, you'll see why, because it opens the door also for parents, for minors to be able to sterilize themselves. It gives them it makes it a right in the Michigan Constitution, and there's no age limits on it. So it could be for minors as well. And our governor supports it. Our governor, who was holding hands with Joe Biden, it's just kind of weird. His wife was like right there, but I don't know. Maybe Joe Biden was a little confused. Or maybe he likes Gretchen Whitmer's shampoo. Who knows? Who knows? But before we jump into everything else today, I do have a video, just a montage about the media. They were so happy at first, I guess, because inflation it's not good, obviously. It's kind of it's not rising at the rate that it was. It's kind of slowing, but it's still obviously bad. Gas prices, Biden was bragging the other day about gas prices going down or being way less than they were when they were $5. Thank God it's not $5 anymore. But which I couldn't believe we got up to $5. I'm like, it can't get up to $5. It's not gonna get up to, and then it got up to $5 in Michigan. Like, I know in California they had got up to like 7 in some places or whatever, maybe higher. But I just did not believe that I would see $5 gas in Michigan. I was so surprised. We were barely at $4. It just automatically, like, we were at 3 for a while, and then it got to 4, and it's like, oh gosh, we're at 4. It just skyrocketed. At no time was it like 3 in the 350s to like 5 something. And so now we're at $4. It's like consistently like $3.99 around me where I live. If you drive a little bit further, you can get to like $3.79, $3.89 in some places, but it's pretty much $4, and it's holding, and it's not going down. And Biden was like, oh, we tapped into the oil strategic reserves, and now it's super bare. It's super, super bare. And I guess they're going to look into purchasing oil. It's not a good idea to take this stuff out of like emergency season, and then ignore the oil companies when they say, hey, here are some things that you could do to actually reduce gas prices and stuff. And they just ignore it. And they're like, those greedy oil people, those tycoons. It's like, or maybe you're just bad at your job. Maybe you're just bad at your job. But yeah, gas is high. My electric bill is really high. I couldn't believe it when I looked at the bill. It was so high. My sister said it's my fault because she's like, you have to have the air conditioning on. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. It was summer and it's hot. But and I had heard my sister talk about how high her bill was, but she got a pool for her kids and stuff. And she's, I'm in a townhouse, she's in a house. I'm like, okay, well, this is probably like a different world. And then I look at my bill, and I thought it was going to be only a certain amount. And I'm like, holy cow. So I'm sure everyone else has some pretty outrageous energy bills. In California, they don't want they only want them to use certain things after 4 p.m. and with the different crises they had with the heat. It's peculiar times. But anyway, here's something that Free Beacon put together, a little montage, and then the stock market fell.
We're seeing cooling all around in terms of inflation. because there was actually some potential good news.
We're glad to see that number wasn't the 8.5% from July.
Overall inflation is easing slightly.
After reaching 40-year highs, it's trying to roll over there, right? That's the trend we've been talking about.
Some very good news when you look across things.
So this was the kind of number that is showing that the Fed's medicine is starting to work.
What a great day.
The Dow down today more than 1,000 points. What's going on?
Yeah, not good. Not good at all. And if you were watching the Democrats and their whole victory lap on like Fox, they had like the Dow thing going down. So they're doing their braggadocious thing about inflation while the money, it's just tanking. So they live in a deluded world. They try to ignore it and just talk as if everything is normal, and it's not. As people continue to fill it in their pockets, at the end of the day, I think that's what people will decide at the polls. But Republicans, they really, really, really need to get on it. Gosh, there's a story and about the Army has told the troops. I saw the headline. I didn't get a chance to read it yet. So I think I liked it somewhere. But they told the Army that they're going to have their families go on food stamps. From the New York Post. Army suggests soldiers fighting inflation go on food stamps. U.S. Army has released a guidance for soldiers as they fight inflation, including a suggestion that they take advantage of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, commonly known as food stamps. SNAP, a benefit for low-income Americans, is a program for which service members and their families may be eligible, the guidance said, pointing soldiers and their families to the SNAP website and phone number. SNAP is one of several options discussed as part of the Army's financial readiness program. With inflation affecting everything from gas prices to groceries to rent, some soldiers and their families are finding it harder to get by on the budgets they've set and used before. Guidance from the Sergeant Major Michael Grinston said soldiers of all ranks can seek guidance, assistance, and advice through the Army's financial readiness program. SNAP applications are processed through the state agencies, each with its own eligibility standards. Applicants have to go through their local offices. This is really crazy. Other programs include Financial Frontline, a one-stop shop with the resources including educational videos on managing debt, tax resources, financial literacy training, and more. The Financial Readiness Program also provides free financial counseling. The guidance also pointed soldiers to the government's Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program for those who qualify. Yeah, it's not acceptable that we spend so much money. They just passed a bill that they didn't need to pass, but they had all this agenda stuff. Biden got up and he said, I've been working on this bill basically since I got in. I'm like, okay, well, the Inflation Reduction Act was just kind of boring. So you're just admitting, which we all know, we're all aware of the fact that this bill is just Build Back Better. It's not really inflation focused. It's just Build Back Better with a different name. And you couldn't get Manchin to sign on to it before. So Bill Gates called Manchin. That's what happened. Bill Gates got involved with it all and basically like pushed it forward and twisted arms, and they cut some more deals or whatever, and Manchin caved. And since Manchin caved, Sinema wasn't going to hold it back all herself. So they spent a tremendous amount of money on that. The American Rescue Plan was a lot of money, and the spending makes it worsens inflation, and we're spending a lot of money on Ukraine too, and we're just spending it left and right, and they have to tell our soldiers to go on food stamps. And they do have certain budgets that they get paid a certain amount. There are like special places like on base or near base that you can go and you can pick up your different food and stuff. I've been on base before. I have a friend, actually, I don't know if she's still, she might have moved off base, but I went to go visit her in January. Went to the March for Life, and but she said even going to where they shop for the soldiers, the prices were high there too. And that was before everything got crazy. That was before everything got outrageous. Prices really shot up since then. So this is bad, and Republicans really should be talking about this. This is a story that just kind of broke. Like, this came out yesterday, this story that I just read. So this needs to be something that's talked about. I know there's some Republicans running for Congress who have served. I'm going to share this around. I think this is important to note. Just we're not taking care of our own, and it's very hard for people to take care of their families in this environment. And you can say MAGA, you can be mad at MAGA, you can try to blame them for I don't know, the crazy delusions they have about democracy and the future of democracy being under attack, which we're not a democracy, FYI. But they're trying to distract from the fact that we're in the here and the now. It doesn't matter if you're blue or red. We still got to pay the same for gas. We still can't find what we need in the grocery store, and when we can, it's too much money. We still have to pay our light bills, and they're too high, whether you vote red or you vote blue. But you know what? If you like how things are, vote blue. If you think there needs to be a change and an adjustment, vote red. Vote red. Because you don't need all this like power from one party being able to do all these crazy things. And I don't think Biden is the type of person who's gonna just, I don't know, straighten himself out all of a sudden because he loses the majority. But who knows? Bill Clinton like started legislating better, basically when he had to. But at least give them some pressure. They passed this Inflation Act with no Republican help because they didn't need it. So they need to lose. If you like how things are and it's not really getting better, and you want to reward the people right now who have you in this situation, everything should be like a slam dunk for Biden. It really should have been. It really should have been. It's amazing that it's not. I remember listening to Ben Shapiro like, he's so lucky he's coming in. He's got the cure with the vaccine already made and the plan. A lot of people has already been injected, and we're in an artificial depression and things are going to bounce back. That's what people were saying. People were saying Biden is so lucky. And then he comes in and things just get worse and worse and worse. And he exacerbates all the problems, doing the mandates and other kind of stuff, and just continuing to spend and spend and spend. If you like how things are, you can reward the people who made it the way that they are. If you think they need some kind of checks and balances, vote red. That's my suggestion to you. Now let's talk about Tim Ryan. As I said, he's running in Ohio, and when I saw this, I'm like, that's not a thing, is it? And then I looked it up. I'm like, oh gosh, he did say this. So this is extreme. I don't think it's like as extreme as some people are playing it off, but I do want to talk about it.
The Democrats aren't right on everything, and I'm willing to sit down and have conversations about how we can move out of this age of stupidity and into an age of reconciliation and reform. How do we fix all of these broken systems? Some of those answers will come from Republicans. It's not the extremists that we're dealing with every single day. We've got to kill and confront that movement. But working with normal mainstream Republicans, I think that's going to be really, really important because we have to reform these systems. And I will tell them too, like, we got to get the government out of our business. I'm all in on that. You see the Dobbs decision. You see, in Florida.
So that was him trying to be neutral, and you can hear him like really trying to be neutral. But he said we have to kill and confront that movement. And so here's the problem, and I hope JD Vance better clean his clock. My gosh, I think that's a killer. There's so many people in Ohio who are, it's a red state. I don't think it's as red as some other places. It's not as red as other places, obviously, but there's some MAGA folks out there, man, in Ohio. And to say we need to kill and confront, I can see people taking that and making some pretty wild ads with that kind of audio. That was a huge mistake on his part. That was a huge mistake. That's a if the right packs and people get cut the right stuff together, put certain stuff on the air. In my opinion, a comment like that is maybe like how if it's tight or whatever, it's a game over. It can be a game over situation. It wasn't smart for him to do that, especially since he was obviously trying to appeal to both sides. To as a moderate, like, oh, Democrats are wrong sometimes, Republicans are right sometimes. We need to work together. But the issue is if you go to the Senate, are you going to rubber stamp the dumb things? Now you might play Joe Manchin sometimes, but if someone cuts you sweet, like, are you going to cave and then you're going to just basically pass the same stuff that you wouldn't support before because someone sweetened your pot? So hopefully no one cares about his, middle of the road stuff, but saying the kill and confront thing. Now, they're saying that for like MAGA extremists, but what the heck is a MAGA extremist? Like, I can hypothesize, but it kind of seems like if you just don't agree with them and you don't go along with the Democrats, then you're just a MAGA extremist. I came home, not home, I went to my parents' house, maybe it was Monday, and I went to my mom's room and she was watching Sean Hannity and she was talking to my sister, so Hannity was on mute. And she just starts laughing and she's like, I heard you was a domestic terrorist. She's this like country Detroit accent. And not because she's Southern, but people, move from the South and just kind of withheld their accent. So it's like a pretty unique country Detroit accent. Other people have it too, but she's definitely got it. And I'm like, what? And so she's like, that's what they say. I'm like, you voted for Trump too, Mom. And she's like, yeah, but you working and doing all this stuff. Or you domestic terrorist, and just laughing about it. And then I'm like, like, that's just the crazy stuff that they're saying. And she's like, you a homegrown one. And Katrina was just like, Mom, where did she grow from? Like, you obviously raised me. So we were just having a laugh about it. Because it is pretty ridiculous. Obviously not a domestic terrorist, but basically if you don't work with them and do what you want them to do and cooperate with the Democrats, then you're just a MAGA extremist. Now, I want to play you an example of this Democrat from Georgia, who makes a pretty extreme comparison to January 6th, which obviously wasn't a good thing. Optics, people who did illegal stuff, which many of those people they went after and prosecuted to extreme extent or whatever, So they're comparing January 6th to parents going to school board meetings. I kid you not.
January 6th, 2021 will never be forgotten, an infamous day in American history. MAGA Republicans descended upon the Capitol, engaged in an insurrection. They occupied the Capitol. 5 people were killed, hundreds injured, including hundreds of Capitol Hill police officers attacked and bludgeoned. It was a day that we'll never forget. And people on the local level at affected school board meetings, they won't forget the MAGA Republicans descending on their school board meetings after January 6th, like January 6th, disrupting meetings. It was a coordinated attack happening across the country. Americans won't forget about it. School board members, teachers, administrators subjected to violence, threats of violence, harassment, intimidation. And in response to that, the National School Boards Association sent a letter to the Biden administration seeking federal help. Things had gotten so far out of hand And by the way, there's not one scintilla of evidence, either direct or indirect, that there was any coordination between the Biden administration and the National School Boards Association that caused that letter to be sent seeking federal assistance. And so in response to that request,
You know what? I had only started watching part of it, so I hadn't watched the whole thing, and you guys couldn't see my face, but my mouth just dropped because I'm like, oh my gosh, she's referencing the school board association letter, and then because in my head I'm just like, they coordinated to make that, and then he's like, there's no scintilla of evidence. I'm like, that's not true. It's not true. So I did write an article on blacktnews.com about that particular thing. Yes, the National School Board Association did coordinate with the White House to make that letter. And it was not even the whole school board association. It was like 2 people. And they coordinated together about what to put in it. And these threats of violence, one of the things that they referenced was a father. He did get a little rowdy at a school board meeting in Loudoun County, but he was there because his daughter was sexually assaulted by a boy in a skirt in the bathroom, and they were acting like, oh, there's no assaults in the bathroom and stuff. So he ended up getting hype, and he was like arrested, and his pictures were plastered all over the place, belly all hanging out as they arrested him on the ground, and that particular incident was linked, like a reference in there. Here's some examples of why we need you to do this. So there was coordination, and again, it wasn't even this whole school board association, and there were other people who were like, this letter was a mistake, but they coordinated together so they could send it to the Justice Department, and they wanted them to use things like the Patriot Act to go after these parents. These concerned parents who are concerned about incidents like their boys in skirts and doing stuff to people in bathrooms, doing stuff like teaching gender identity stuff in schools to young children, having really perverted books in the school libraries. And I mean perverted. By the way, Joe Biden was interviewed the other day, and they asked, like, should all these books be in the library? She said all books should be in the library. She's like, we're in America, we don't ban books. And it's like, I'm pretty sure there's some books that you probably wouldn't want in the library. Let's be honest, Jill, if they didn't fit your kind of ideology. But there's some books that really shouldn't be in a kid's library. There just shouldn't be. And some of those books are. And we're talking about graphically sexually explicit stuff that if parents will go, have you seen the videos, like a parent will go to a school board and they'll start reading something that's really graphic, and they'll be like, oh, don't read that here. And it's like, it's not okay to read this here, but it's okay for this to be like in a library for their kids to read. So that's just wild, him lying like that. And I know he's lying. Again, you can go to blacktnews.com. I have an article that I wrote, and it has like links and stuff with the evidence of like the coordination with the White House and the different emails, etc. It was coordinated. It was coordinated. So he's lying through his teeth. Man, gosh, that's bananas. But anyway, he just compared these parents at these school board meetings with MAGA extremists at the Capitol. So if they're comparing that, my point is, who is the MAGA movement that people like Tim Ryan wants to, I don't think he literally wants to kill people, but they're talking about killing the movement or confronting the movement. Confronting is a much better word than kill, what are they talking about? Because here's the thing, MAGA movement, like, obviously people view Trump as like the main person. And so many people who are like MAGA people love Trump, but not everyone, I think, who puts on a red hat are like as gung-ho about Trump as you may think, but they like the sort of things that they were talking about, like putting America first, America being on top, being proud to be an American, peace through strength, those sorts of things, having a good economy. Just there's one video I did when I worked with Michigan Republican Party, because Angela Rye Can't stand her. She was on CNN and she was talking about when we hear "Make America Great Again," we think about water holes and racism, blah blah blah. And it made me so upset. And I'm like, I'm just gonna say it was raining. It was out in the Novi Expo. I just took my camera and my umbrella in one hand, my camera in the other, and I just went up to people in the crowd waiting to get into the rally. And I said, "What does Make America Great Again mean to you?" And people had such beautiful, wonderful answers. And guess what? None of them had anything to do with racism or bring back people time to a place where women didn't have any rights and other crazy stuff that people on the left allege. Like he says, confront. Why not like engage in a conversation and meet people in the middle? That's what you actually do instead of just trying to, like, everyone you don't like is an extremist. That's not how the world works. There are some extreme people on the left and the right, but we have more common ground than what you really think. But having that hostility and painting everyone you don't like pretty much in that vein, and people who are willing to stand up to you in that light, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's really, 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 really not going to work. And they're not going to be able to use a January 6th crutch forever. I know they were really stretching it out. And then, of course, they brought it back with a big TV spectacular. And they'll talk about it again. And then we'll come up on the anniversary of January 6th. But people still have trouble paying for their gas. People are having trouble paying for the food, keeping the lights on. It's not good all across the country. So those are the things that people are going to remember. And you know what? The parents are still going to be upset when they find those gross books in their libraries, when they hear their kids learning about bad stuff. And there are teachers who are trying to worm their way around and still teach inappropriate things to kids. And for some reason, for some godforsaken reason, these teachers feel emboldened to say, "Hey, TikTok, guess what? Like, this is how you can still secretly teach all these things in your classroom." Like the stupidity that people will resort to just for clicks is amazing. I'm like, please fire that person. That's what I see that. Thank God for like libs of TikTok. She finds the stuff and they post it, and usually, you know, some stuff can get shut down, and there have been like people who've been fired. But they'll try it. I wouldn't put my kid in public school, but that's me. That's me. So what is a MAGA Republican? Just anyone who'll stand up to him, apparently. Anyone who'll stand up to him. I'm not saying there's not like crazy people. There certainly are on the right and the left. And as a matter of fact, I don't think normal people really want to be that engaged in politics. I think normal people want to live their lives and just concentrate on their family, their jobs, etc. And then when things get bad, they're like, you know what? Let me get involved. Like, for example, I have a cousin that lives out in Arizona. She's very involved, like now. But the elevation of just how things were in the country made her get involved. For years, my sister tried to get her involved in school board and other stuff, and she's just like, you know, busy taking care of her family and her kids and her church and all that other kind of stuff. But sometimes then you were like, you have to get involved. So I think that's how most people kind of get involved. And there might be like people who do it for work who aren't nearly like as impassioned as like people on the outside. It's a job. There's people who kind of like fall into it, like the family was this way, you're this way, you know, etc. But then there are people who are, I don't know, really, really searching for some kind of meaning, and they don't have it in other places. And some people are not well, and they will grapple onto stuff and go way too extreme, and they don't have their priorities straight, and that can be on the right and that can be in the left. And you really need a balance of what's important when you look at this stuff. Sometimes my dad and other people ask me if I'll run again, because I did run for Congress in 2014. I'm just like, that sounds like the worst thing in the world. I know somebody's got to do it, but I'm just like, it's like I have no desire for that. I love Carrie Lake's answer when she's like, do you want to be the vice president? Or are you talking to Trump about that? And she's like, I hate DC. I'm like, I feel that. Anyway, let's move on to the Chloe Cole story. Chloe Cole she's a detransitioner, and she's told her story. She's getting a lot of play from people on the right or and left. People are sharing it who are not a fan of this ideology. And so I've seen her testify a few times in California, because California has had some pretty radical bills pushed by Scott Wiener, and he's a weirdo, and I will say perv. It's just the kind of things that he passes are insane. And I'll just be blunt about it. I don't understand all the things he pushes, and people like not having more of an uproar about this guy. But one thing they're fighting right now is to basically turn California into like a sanctuary state. Like, people have sanctuary states for like illegal immigration. They want it like to be like that for abortion and for transgender ideology and surgeries and all, and puberty blockage and all that kind of stuff, I guess. So that's what they're fighting. But he has been able to get other stuff passed. Like, Gavin Newsom signed a bill about withholding certain private information from policyholders on insurance. So in other words, from parents, if like minors wanted some kind of like surgery and abortion or something. So it'd be kind of like hidden. So your parents are going to fit the bill, and they don't get to know if you had an abortion and puberty blockers. It's just really, really insane, some of the stuff. And there's more than that. I do have an article that's fairly recent if you go to the articles on blacktnews.com about Wiener. But here's a video of Chloe testifying and saying a little bit about her life.
My name is Chloe Cole. I'm 18, and my story is not hyperbole. Starting around the age of 12, I began to believe that I was transgender. This belief was not organic. All the media I consumed as a kid showed me how stupid and vulnerable being a girl was. All the sexualized images of women gave me an unrealistic expectation of womanhood. I spent a lot of time online and quickly saw all the praise coming out of trans God on Instagram and other social media. I was a bit awkward in school and had some trouble making friends. Like many dysphoric children, I also suffer from a variety of mental health conditions, so I easily fell prey to the narrative that if I felt different and did not want to be a highly sexualized girl, I must be a boy. I obsessed over becoming a boy. I believed that all my insecurities and anxiety would magically disappear once I transitioned. The mental health professionals did not try to dissuade me of this delusional belief. I was fast-tracked into medical transition after I was diagnosed with dysphoria. In California, a child can pick their gender identity, and a care provider questioning that would be considered conversion therapy. This wasn't a misdiagnosis. It was mistreatment. My parents were told that the options were transition or suicide. They complied because they were not offered any other treatment solution for my distress. My distraught parents wanted me alive, so they listened to my doctors. I was placed on puberty blockers and testosterone after expressing my gender dysphoria to my therapist, and I was approved for a double mastectomy all by the age of 15. No one explored why I did not want to be a girl. More and more kids are falling for the false promise of happiness if they transition. Gender clinics in the US are turning a blind eye to European countries who are pumping the brakes on this experiment on youth. Who here really believes that, as a 15-year-old, I should have had my healthy breast removed, or that it should have been an option? When the CDPH got less than 300 reports of people getting hospitalized as a result of vaping. San Francisco banned vape products that same year. So I know that you care about the health of children, yet you are allowing doctors all over the state to remove the healthy breasts of children. How many more children's bodies will be destroyed before you actually listen? What is the sweet spot? 100? 200? 1,000? SB 107 will open the floodgates for confused children like me to get the gender interventions that many so regret. I am the canary in the coal mine.
So they are really, really trying to pass some super radical things, and have passed it, and they're going to continue to pass it. I don't know what to do about California right now, guys. But in an article that was written as a hit piece, now Forbes took an article that was written by someone else first, someone named Don Enos, a trans-identified male, concocted quite the hit piece on me. That's what Chloe said, for the Los Angeles Blade on Sunday titled California ex-trans teen is a national right-wing media's darling. And then Forbes picked it up. And I saw a little bit of like their back and forth on Twitter, and Dawn was just like, how is it a hit piece? It's clearly framed in a way to make it just so just like it's a right-wing conspiracy thing, and they're taking advantage of this person who's actually gone through this terrible thing. And there's something in the article that's so crazy that I have a screenshot, but I guess I didn't upload it, or say, I know I started working on it, but I guess I didn't upload it here. So I'm trying to find where it is in the article. It's so crazy. It made me question, are we in the Matrix? Like, are we, is it so weird? So is everyone so detached from reality now that we're all just like in the Matrix, and some people are free and some people are not? So this was in the article. In Forbes, despite Chloe's choice of words matching, let me go up a little bit before we get to this paragraph. The gender dysphoria gets better every day through accepting the biological reality that while being a man may have its advantages, appropriating the stereotype of men will never allow me to become one, said Cole in an email Saturday. The Los Angeles Blade asked her if that means she does not consider trans men to be men. Well, trans men are not biological males, so definitionally, they are not men. They still have XX chromosomes. They use hormones and surgery to approximate the experience. That does not mean that we shouldn't treat those individuals with respect, but it does mean that there is a difference that we need to recognize as a society. Now, that sounds totally reasonable, right? Totally reasonable from Chloe. The article goes on and says, despite Cole's choice of words matching that many anti-trans activists, federal judges, the ACLU, and now the Associated Press have made it clear that the transphobic terms biological male, biological female, and biological sex, they're all in quotation marks, are nonsense words coined during the North Carolina bathroom bill days specifically to oppress trans people. Biological male, biological female, and biological sex are nonsense words. So anyway, Forbes ended up taking this article down. And they clearly were just trying to make it seem like Chloe is just being used by these, in my opinion, I think that's what they want. I don't know, maybe like she's a pick-me or something like that. Because they mentioned Marjorie Taylor Greene's like, Marjorie Taylor Greene has retweeted Chloe. Like it's so nefarious when other people retweet things that you say. Chloe, I really appreciate what she's doing and telling her story. And she's not the only person. There's so many detransition stories, but there's a lot of people that I've seen who've taken hormones and are talking about what happened. It's like a whole nother level when you're like looking at pictures of women who have taken off their breasts. And now they're like, I'm not going to be able to feed my child if I want one. Like maybe I didn't think about it before. Because I don't know how much thought you put in it when you're like 14, 15. And now you're getting older and you're like, I've done this damage to my body. How am I going to take care of a baby? If I won't, can I even have kids? Because she was taking Lupron. And Lupron, we mentioned this yesterday, Lupron is a drug that they would give to prisoners to like chemically castrate them And so this is what they're giving kids for puberty blockers. And she said that there was really no pushback. People didn't really question. And it's not so much that I think so many of these women want to be boys. It's just they don't want to be women. And why is that? Well, people keep saying female's future, but people keep treating females like they're objects, like they're the opposite, like they're the inferior sex. Like women can't be equal unless they have abortion. That's really sexist. So we're not like naturally inherently just equal to men. Because our bodies put, like, we have a physical disadvantage compared to men. Yeah, sure, but we can do this miraculous thing of creating life that men can't do. There's a great saying, I don't know who made it up, who said it, but women weren't created to be men. Women were created to do what men can't do. Them's is just the facts. We can do this miraculous thing, and for some reason, because we can do this thing, they're like, oh no, we got to make sure that they have their options to their children, or they're not equal. And then you got all these people who want to just treat women like vessels of pleasure. And another thing that women have said, they who've transitioned and detransitioned, they didn't feel comfortable the way that society would sexualize women. So they didn't want to be women. And then they also didn't feel safe as women. And you have all these people who are so pro-feminist, but they're painting these realities of things that aren't true. Like they talk about the wage gap, which the wage gap exists pretty much because men and women make different choices and they just manifest differently that comes out to their pay. But it's so hard to be a woman. Well, women hear that. And they have all this internalized misogyny. And they grow up and they don't want to be women. And sometimes it's deeper than that. I've heard detransition people talk about how they had an abusive father, and their father would abuse their mother, and they're like, well, I don't want to be in a situation like that. And I heard someone say, I saw this video yesterday, they said, well, I didn't want to be a woman because like my mother was, but I didn't want to be the man who I don't want to be a man like my father. So they got up and made up in their mind as a child that they wanted to be the man that their father wasn't. And there's all of this trauma, there's depression, there's anxiety, all these things that can be centered around something that if someone really cared, they would get to the bottom of it. But instead, they're like, here's some hormones. We're going to pause their puberty. It's not pausing, but that's what they'll say. That's what that woman said in Matt Walsh's documentary, What is a Woman? We just pause it. We just hit the button and we just pause it. That's not what happens. And they do all this irreversible damage to these kids. And in other countries, they've seen that they've made a mistake and they're starting to dial it back. But in the US, we're like full steam ahead. And if you don't support this, if you don't agree with it, then you're just a terrible sexist, racist, homophobic, they'll say all the words. They'll say all the words. There was a great quote that I shared today from Thomas Sowell. It was in his documentary not a documentary, it was in a biography that someone wrote about him. And the line was, when you want to help people, you tell them the truth. When you want to help yourself, you tell them what they want to hear. So that can relate to so many things, but definitely with the transgender movement. Like if you really wanted to help them, you would tell them the truth. But there's so many parents who are I can't think what the name of the disease is, but it's when you basically your kid is sick and you get attention and you like the attention. And so that's what a lot of parents are doing. Instead of parenting their kids and really helping them through their dysphoria or whatever, they're like, oh, my kid's so special because they're trans and we're, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. And instead of saying, like, when they say, like, hey, I think I'm a boy, it's like, what do you mean by that? They won't be able to answer. They can't know what it's like to be a boy. If they're a girl, they can't know what it's like to be a boy. They can't quantify that. So if you just tried to help them think it through, obviously they're not going to be able to answer that and have some kind of legitimate experience. Now, if they want to wear certain things or whatever, that and have different expressions of femininity, masculinity, that's different. But saying that they're a boy and they're not really a boy and going along with it, and then attacking people like Chloe Cole for sharing her experience and trying to stop really heinous bills. It will not be a good thing if California becomes a sanctuary state for abortion or for trans ideology. It won't be. And in Michigan, I've already said this, but we have the reproductive freedom for all ballot proposal that's going to be something we're going to vote on November the 8th in my state. And it makes sterilization a right. And it changes our constitution. And there are no age limits on it. It does not define an individual as an adult or something. Women will just have that right. So you could be a girl and want something like Lupron to sterilize yourself, or the door is open to that anyway. It's very broad, and it could be broad just because they're evil. It could be broad because they wrote it very quick and it's not a smart bill, but it is what it is. I don't want more people like Chloe to be in our state and then make these crucial errors and harm themselves in such a destructive way. But that's what we're pushing, to the point where in Forbes they said that biological male, biological female, biological sex are nonsense words. So if those are nonsense words, biological, are we because they'll try to say that, well, we know that your identity is different than your biology, and male and female are different than woman and man, and those are different things, like the sex versus your expression or whatever, your identity. And but at the same time, that's what they say, but they really do resent biology. And you see, like, with this phrasing, obviously that points it out. But I've said that on my site in articles that I've written, that obviously they don't believe that, because if it was just something that could be solved with just you identifying in that way, then why do you need to change your outward expression to match that? And then there's making everyone else conform to it as well. So they're trying to they're chasing after a pot of gold at the end of a rainbow that they'll never find. And they got to make you go along on the hunt, on the journey. But Chloe is I admire her strength, and I wish someone had helped her. Seeing these pictures of these girls just with these scars across their chest, I can't believe we do this. I can't believe we do a lot of things in this crazy country. It's amazing. Last thing I want to just mention, again, I briefly mentioned this, Stacey Abrams, she did say on The View, I don't have this clip, I want to find some stuff of her denying the election, but she's pretending like she's never denied the election results. And we all know that's not the case. And she was repeatedly invited different places as the actual real person who won, and they wouldn't really question her, even like long beyond a time where people were entertaining it. She should not be like super famous, but they still continued to uplift her after her loss. Like, when a lot of people lose, they like go away, you know? Like, you can run for Congress a couple times or something, but you lose the governorship? And people can run for governor again too, but usually losers don't get the amount of fame that she's received. But she's a celebrity. She's and people would invite her on and pretend and go along with her delusion about actually winning. Now, I don't know if she actually believes that she won or lost or was cheated or whatever. But she understands now, and she's not going to win. A lot of people were very concerned before about her. If she runs and Kemp is a person, then they were like, oh, she's going to win. And I guess I was a little concerned about that too, but I'm just like, Republicans need to get they need to back him. That's what, like he did have a challenger, but he like ran away with it. So I'm glad that stuff kind of leveled out in Georgia, and he seems like he's gonna run away with it. And I think his voters who are maybe not crazy about Herschel Walker, if he's ahead, they'll probably pull Herschel Walker over too. We'll see. We will see. But Abrams, she's delusional about her delusions. So I just wanted to point that out. Before I left you all today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different articles that I've written. Again, I have an article about the coordination between the White House and the National School Board Association. I was just so floored that he lied about it. Because the evidence does exist. There's definitely evidence about that. We also have articles about the transgenderism and other stuff like that. You guys can go check out at the website blacktnews.com. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation at blacktnews.com/donate. It helps with the site. It helps with streaming. It helps, with travel. It helps all around software I use, everything. There's a cost associated. I'm sure you guys are aware. You guys pay for things in your life as well. If you can help, I very much appreciate. If you can't, understand. But thank you for commenting, for watching live, for watching back later, for telling other people to watch Black T News. I very much appreciate it. Make sure that you're liking, that you're subscribing, that you're following across all the different social media platforms. If you've liked the page on Facebook, make sure that you're following, because they did change things around. Also check out different merch that we have, like the pro-choice men, our sus merch. I got the Roe Casey aborted and life wins, and you are not that special mugs. Also got those as well. I love those little things. Also, if you guys don't know, I do write books. Mostly I have a lot of fiction books. I have a website called ninjadoespublishing.com. If you go to blacktnews.com, you go to the merchandise, there's a banner with my books on it. It will take you to my book website. But if you search my name, Christina Elbar, on Amazon, you'll find me. I do have one nonfiction book I wrote during the pandemic, because people were flipping out, losing their minds. So I was like, please get your life together. It's not specifically about the pandemic, but it's about overcoming fear. So there's Slay Your Fear, How to Overcome a Spirit of Fear. And also I have historical fiction fantasy books you guys can check out. This takes place during the Civil War. Imagine like Roots meets X-Men, like basically. It's a really good story. You guys can check that out. All my stuff is also available on, well, not all of it. Most everything is available on Kindle Unlimited if you have that. Also have children's books, chapter books, Super Kid 2, lots of good conservative type values in that book if you want to check it out. It's not a political book, obviously, but it's a lot of good values that you want to instill with your kids. And it is very funny if you want to read it with your kids or grandkids or whatever. I'm sure you'll probably laugh more than they will, because you'll probably get more of the humor and the whimsy of the wonders of childhood. So go ahead and check that stuff out. God bless you guys, and I will see you tomorrow.